Hi everyone, Scorp here, with another top 10 list of Duelist the Roses cards. These are my top 10 normal monsters. Like if I'm playing an archetype of monsters, I'm probably putting this into my deck, almost guaranteed. Um, and it's usually because of their ability to fuse, or in a couple cases there's innate stats that are really good, or they meet certain fusion thresholds that are super nice. So without further ado, I'm going to start off with Dragon Zombie at number 10. Dragon Zombie is just, for 16 deck cost, it's a 1600 attack creature. That's one of the main reasons. It's one of the main reasons that zombies are super strong, and you can keep them super cheap. If you're playing if you were playing against another person and your goal was to make 700 deck cost decks, Dragon Zombie would be one of the reasons that you can easily make a zombie deck. It fuses well with other cards. You can easily get it to go into Skelgon. You can use it as a fusion fodder for Pumpkin. You can use it for Great Mammoth of Goldfine. Great for fusion. This is also not a card that's too bad. You can probably just throw a Violet Crystal on it. Dragon Treasure I do not believe works on this card, but I've never really tested that because I wouldn't play Dragon Treasure in a zombie deck. But yes, this card is, it's easy to make this thing, like just field effect plus your leader ability. It's probably a 2600 with a Violet Crystal. I mean, a 3100 is a pretty respectable creature, and it's all for 3 stars. And it only costs you 16 deck cost, and it's great for all of your zombie fusions, so just overall, this is about the power level of card that we're going to really see on this list. It's a card that you're probably, it's going to find a slot in your deck just because there's not a bunch of other effect creatures you can actually put in your deck that are good enough, so that's why Dragon Zombie sees itself on the list here. Next up, we have Komori Dragon at number 9. Komori Dragon is a fusion material for Trihorn Dragon. You fuse it with Curse of Dragon for 3 stars to get Trihorn Dragon. Curse of Dragon is, of course, not. It is a effect creature, so it's not going to be on this list. But this is one of the key cards that you'd have in a Dark Dragon deck. You'd probably play 3 Komori Dragons with 3 Tyhones. So you can also go into Red Eyes, but with the Curse of Dragons, you can also go into Trihorns. And this is entirely on here because in a Dragon deck, this would be 2 stars. So 2 stars for a creature that's going to fuse into a 2850, and its star count doesn't even matter because the other creature is the slightly higher one at 3 stars. So this is just half of a fusion that's really, really good. Also, why does this get level cost reduction? It's level 4. But yes, this creature, it's good enough. Also, I mean, in an absolute pinch, it takes all the Dark Dragon equips, so it'll take the Dragon Treasures, the Nails of Bane, the Horn of the Unicorn. So it's a good enough card as it is. I mean, especially for 2 stars, I'd play a 1500 attack creature. So I just said I'd play a 1600 attack one for 3 stars, so I should be able to play this. It is a little bit pricey in the deck cost, but that's kind of what you're going to have to deal with a Dark Dragon strategy. Everything is super intensive on the deck cost, so that's what you're going to have to deal with. But this is entirely here because it's a Dark Dragon that has a really good fusion to go into a Trihorn Dragon. Next up, at number 8, we have Kamini Karizo. Kaminari Kozo. I think is how you say it, because Kaminari is like Kaminari attack. You'd say Kaminari and then Kozu. This little lizard's great for fusing with a 2000 attack plus dragon to make Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon, something that I have definitely showed off in Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon Turbo deck, and probably also you saw it in the Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon, or the Thunder playthrough I just did a little bit ago. This card's great for just a great choice for Thunders because it's so cheap. Basically, this is one of the cheapest Thunder creatures in the game. Most of the cheap Thunder creatures have pretty poor effects, so you might as well just play something with low deck cost, and this has basically the lowest deck cost of any of your Thunder choices. So 13 deck cost to fuse into fuse with your Curse of Dragon or Parrot Dragon to make yourself a Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon. As long as you can pick basically any Thunder that's level 3 or lower, this is just like the cheapest. Just go show that it's one of the cheapest. Here, you wouldn't want to use like Bolt Penguin. Here it is at 13, but most of these others, all of these other Thunder cards, they're more than 13 deck cost. Your next best bet is like Lala Leon, but that's unfortunately an effect creature, so it has 5 extra deck cost added on. Yeah, so Kaminari Kozu, pretty good choice. Also, I would try to avoid playing this on its own. It's kind of weak, but as fusion fodder, it's quite nice. Also, low-level Thunders have decent leader abilities, so just a consideration for a deck leader. Going ahead to the next creature. Next up, we have Wing Egg Elf. Now, this is a creature that's probably not a surprise to anyone, especially if you've watched Clovis's videos. And his love for Mystical Elf and how strong Mystical Elf can be. This card is considered an elf, which is super nice. Because it is an elf, it has really nice fusions, and that's why it's on this list. It's part of the Mystical Elf package that I've probably referred to before, where you play this card, and it fuses with 3 of a female that's like 800 attack or below, preferably 750 or below, and that makes a Mystical Elf. So any light female, so like Unhappy Maiden or Magician of Faith, are great fusion targets to fuse this with to make yourself a Mystical Elf. And then you can use Mystical Elf synergy with its gain plus 800 for all light creatures to do good things. So this is basically your 3-star option to go into that fusion. So you're basically saving a star point, and you're able to play an extra 3 Mystical Elves effectively with this card. It's also good if you're wanting to go into Dark Elves. You can play this with the Dark Spellcasters, and then you can also fuse this into Dark Elf, which Dark Elf's a 2000 attack creature in a Dark Spellcaster deck, and that's pretty good. That's another good choice you can have to play elves. So the elf archetype is really nice. They also have a super good equip named Elf Sleight, which is plus 700 attack, so even more reason to play elves. And this is just one of the key enabler cards for the elf fusions. So that's why it makes it in at number 7 on the list. It's not the best elf fusion card, but it is extremely solid. Next up, at number 6, we have Mammoth Graveyard. This card is basically the reason that zombies are so strong and so quick and consistently used for speedrunning this game. You can fuse this with basically any zombie and make yourself a Great Mammoth of Goldfine. It goes great with the dragon zombie that we had earlier. You fuse this with the dragon zombie, or take your pick of pretty much any zombie, and you have a 2200 attack creature. Gains 500 from your deck leader ability, gains another 500 from the field that you changed. It's a 3200 attack beatstick. What's not to like? On top of that, you're doing that fusion for 3 stars because that fusion is super easy to get to. Because this card is 3 stars and it's basically any zombie. Let's see if I can find Great Mammoth Goldfine here real quick. So you're bringing out this thing, which 2200 is not the best, not the worst. It's a pretty good stat line for this game. But you're doing this by fusing this card with basically any zombie, and you're going to play a whole bunch of zombies in your zombie deck, so it's super nice. This card also gains from Wasteland Terrain if you ever really had to play it by itself. Please don't have to play this by itself. One other thing to slightly make it better, it's a pretty decent choice for a dinosaur deck leader if you really hate yourself enough to play dinosaurs. This is definitely the best dinosaur in the game, just because it fuses into something that's not dinosaurs. So, Mammoth Graveyard, an excellent card to put into zombie decks, great for being super aggressive with zombie decks, and making a 2200 for really low star costs, a 3-star cost. So, good enough card to include in a zombie deck. Next up, at number 5, we have Mechanical Chaser. This card is great for machine decks because you're going to play this as your main fusion source to go into Barrel Dragon, which is a 1700 plus dark machine fused with Metal Dragon. So this is a great choice to fuse with the Metal Dragon to make yourself Barrel Dragon. It's also in a machine deck. It's going to be 2 stars because they all have the deck leaders you're going to use for machines are going to have -2 summoning cost for the strong ones. So you'll go into Barrel Dragon super easy with this thing. And in addition, this card is almost a 2000 attack beat stick on its own for 2 stars. Absolutely amazing. And it's going to take your machine equips, and you're not going to feel bad just slapping 2 Machine Conversion Factory on this thing and using your leader ability for movement boost to send this thing 2 spaces into your opponent deck leader and kill them. So this is a great card for doing stuff like that, where this card's just, it's cheap. You're always going to be able to play it, and it just it's going to do 1850 or 2350 damage probably to your opponents directly. And it also fuses nicely into basically one of your best boss monsters in machines, which is Barrel Dragon. Basically the best thing you can play for 4 stars, fusing this with a 4-star Metal Dragon. So Mechanical Chaser, probably the best machine in the game. And it comes in a pretty low 27 deck cost too, which is really nice. Next up we have Job Change Mirror at number 4. Job Change Mirror is a great card for fusions. Basically the only thing that you're going to do Fiend fusions with is Job Change Mirror. And this has some really good ones. Job Change Mirror fuses and can make itself 2 of them. Create, I can find it here real quick. It fused with any fiend that is below 1600, makes Ryukushin powered. which is a 1600 attack fiend, which that's probably what you're never going to use it for. What you're going to usually use it for is going to fuse with a 1600 plus fiend to make Summon Skull. So it plus basically a 4-star like La Jin or Bistro Buster gets you a 6-star 2500 attack creature in Summon Skull. Super good. You really want to be able to make Summon Skulls. Summon Skulls is probably your bread and butter in like a fiend type deck. So being able to make a bunch of them is really nice. But if you were to brick and you drew 2 of them, they fuse and make Fiend's Mirror, which you can just play in face-up defense, and it messes up your opponent because they only gain 2 summoning power instead of 3 each turn. If you play 3 of these, you can basically stop your opponent from playing the game, because they can no longer play monsters. That's a pretty fun way to win the game. But basically it's another choice for Job Change Mirror for your fusions. So fusing 2 of these makes Fiend's Mirror, and then you're going to fuse it with like Bistro Butcher and La Jin, the Genie of the Lamp, to make yourself Summon Skulls. So you have multiple options in your Fiend deck for fusions. This list doesn't have Versago the Destroyer on it, which would be your other choice, because that fuses into Chakra with the Monster Eye. I just didn't include it because it's so limiting in terms of your choice of fusions, and it's still 3 stars. So I chose Job Change Mirror over that. But this card is probably a 3 of in basically every Fiend deck that wants to go straight Fiends and not like Tombs. So Job Change Mirror, pretty good card. Next up, at number 3, we have Griggle. Yes, we have the unassuming plant that is 7 deck cost and 1 star. This card is pretty weak by all standards until you realize what you're going to do with it, which is this card is always fusion fodder. This card probably goes in your zombie decks because you're going to fuse it into Pumpkins. You're going to throw this card into your Rose Spectre decks, and you fuse it with any level 1 Fiend, and you have Rose Spectre of the Dun, which is a super powerful deck and probably the strongest thing you can do with plants. This card can also be thrown into a female deck, and you can make Queen of Autumn Leaves if you wanted to go with a Queen of Autumn Leaves style plant deck. If you need a plant card for a fusion, Griggle is probably your go-to option, because most of the plant fusions don't require stat requirements on the plant. Usually the stat requirements on the other creature, like for Big B-Dragon Jungle King. You can use any plant for the fusion, whereas the other card's limited. So you're going to use basically the cheapest plant, or you're going to use the plant with the best effect. There are some good plant effects. There are some plants that have such good effects that you don't even want to fuse them, like Ancient Tree of Enlightenment. But normally I'm going to look towards like the cheapest and easiest option I can for my fusion. So I'm going to be tossing up playing Griggle or probably a Maneater. And Griggle's going to win out some of the time, or it's going to be played in addition to that Maneater. So Griggle, super nice for fusing into Rose Spectres, Pumpkins, other plant fusions. Just a great card to be fusion fodder, especially for 1 star. 1 star is just so good because you can always play 1 star. You should start your turn with 3 summoning power at minimum, unless your opponent just played 3 Fiend's Mirrors on you, and then if you let them play 3 Fiend's Mirrors on you, you probably deserve to lose the game. But yeah, Griggle, it's a great choice. It's also super low deck cost, super low summoning power. Great card overall if you need a plant to fuse with. Next up, coming in at number 2, we have Parrot Dragon. Now, this should probably come as no surprise that I put a super strong fusion material for Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon up at number 2. This is a card that you're probably going to see in Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon Turbo decks, if those exist. And basically this, in a dragon deck, it's 3 stars for a 2000 attack creature, which is good enough already. And then the fact that you can fuse this with any thunder and you make yourself Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon. So it goes with number 8 on the list perfectly to make your fusions. You put this in a deck with 3 of these, 3 Curse of Dragons, and then probably 3 Bee Dragon Jungle Kings or something, some other 2000 plus dragon, and then you have 9 Thunders and you fuse into a bunch of Twin-Headed Thunder Dragons. It's super easy. And this card lets you do the Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon fusion for 3 stars. And it's only 33 deck cost, which is about as good as you're going to get for fusions to make a 2800 attack creature. So Parrot Dragon is really, really good. Fusing for 3 stars is basically ideal. You want to use 3 summoning power or less per turn, and if you're using 3 summoning power to fuse, you're doing it right. So Parrot Dragon is an absolutely amazing card. You're probably going to even play this in just a straight Thunder deck if you have a Thunder deck leader, because your best card is Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon, and I'd still pay 5 stars for it. I have a problem paying 7 stars for Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon though, so that's where Parrot Dragon really comes in. Gotta do the fusion, but the fusion's super worth it. So Parrot Dragon, good card, definitely would recommend. Also, it's nice and easy to obtain from Joey, so that's a super nice benefit of this card. Easy to obtain too. And last but not least, at number 1 we have Dancing Elf, which this probably surprises nobody. This card is basically Wing Egg Elf, except better. This card, instead of costing 18 deck cost, it costs 5. Instead of costing 3 summoning power, it costs 1. You can fuse this with your Unhappy Maiden for 1 summoning power, and guess what? You get a 4-star mystical elf that increases all of your light creatures by 800. The only thing holding this thing back is its wind, but that doesn't ever matter because you're just gonna fuse this thing off anyways. It's also great in Dark Elf decks. Again, elves are good for good fusions. So basically, for 1 stars, or for probably like 2 stars, you're probably going to make yourself a Dark Elf, which is a 2000 attack creature. So Dancing Elf, it's another this is probably the best level 1 creature in the game. Or if it's not the best, it's like right there with them. It's hard to come up with, well, you got like Swordsman from a Foreign Land to compete with, but like for things that don't have effects, oh, you also have Magician of Faith. So it has some staunch competition at level 1 for strongest card, because they have really good effects, those cards do. But for a card without an effect, this is probably the best card in the game that doesn't have an effect. This card is entirely carried by the fact that it is used for some of the strongest fusions in the game, while it's also level 1, so, and 5 deck cost. So it keeps your deck cost low. These fusions are mostly level 3 or lower fusions. They're probably level 1 fusions, which level 1 fusions are great because that means your next turn you have 5 summoning power. Or if you had more saved over, you could have up to 7 or more summoning power, which is super nice. So really good low summoning power, low deck cost. Stats don't matter because it's always getting fused off, and it also has good leader powers, if you really want to use it for a leader, I'd probably tend to not use life point recovery. But elves do get a ton, or fairies do get a ton of leader powers, so it's also nice for a deck leader. Also, it also does all the female fusions too. If that weren't enough, also does the female fusions, so that Queen of Autumn Leaves deck, the Neko Gal deck, you could throw this in there too. Doesn't quite work in a Mystical Sand deck because that requires level 4 females, but this does well enough. I don't think it needed to be that strong. So again, same with the spells. Let me know if you think I missed any normal monsters that really should have made this list. Also, if you think that some of these choices are bad, let me know, and let us all know why. And what you think could be better. So thanks everybody for watching, and have a nice day.